Buddy, good to have you with us. Another panel discussion from the Airline Crewing Enigma community on behalf of Claire, Paul, Kevin, and all the other Project Genesis group members. I'm very glad to have you with us today. My name is Daniel Stecher. I'm working for IBS Software, and together with my colleagues, Claire, Paul, Kevin, Leonie, Marcel, and Antonius, we have started a couple months back to work on a manual. I would say the brain behind is Paul, and I'm very glad that we have him today in the session because a couple of weeks back he was not able to make it. And we have created, I think we are 40 pages long, the Airline Crewing Enigma, which I believe is really a great accomplishment to date. But it's a work in progress, and today we want to discuss with the community and everybody who is attending the session the feedback we have received, but we also want to recap what we have done so far and what is also planned for the future. And let's kick it off and start really. Paul, maybe you give also to all the other listeners a little bit your thoughts behind this Project Genesis and what you think we have accomplished so far and what is necessary to proceed in the future.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. My name's Paul Donachie. I started my career in aviation in the 1970s when it was manual, and possibly some of you had not been born then and have come into the world of electronics. But the electronic side does not always work. It doesn't have that intelligence that we possess, that you can see and you know what some of the answers might be. And as each day goes by, whether it be disruption or in a planning environment, there's always something that you're thinking about, that why can't we do this? Or I wonder what other airlines do. And I've been fortunate enough to work in many airlines in different parts of the world. And there's a lot of fantastic people I've worked with. Some of them are in the dark. And the management team are even in a darker realm. All they want is, why do we need more crew? Why can't we schedule? Why can't we do this? And they're looking at you for answers. You may not necessarily have the knowledge, you may not necessarily have the equipment to answer some of those questions, but you are responsible for the whole thing. There are courses available at universities, on YouTube, and different forums where you can learn how to do things, but there's not much in aircrew planning. It's, in my experience, those people down the hall, they do the rosters, or they fix up the disruptions. It's no one knows what goes on down there. You just suddenly get a roster. It's like an enigma. So it made me realise we've got nothing, and yet we are responsible for so much. I believe Boeing in the 80s or 90s said that a delay to an airline can be $300 a minute. Now, if you haven't got the crew in the right place, or you haven't got enough crew, you are responsible for that. So what do other airlines do? And after Daniel and Claire put this group of people together, it made me think, why not use the experience and expertise of us as a community to actually design something that may be useful to someone else? Hence the idea of let's have a manual for people to look at. It's not necessarily a procedures manual. It's a guide to help people understand why we do what we do. And everybody does it differently. And the more ideas we can get into the manual, the better the manual will be. I've worked with startups, and the airline has said we're going to have 2 aircraft and we're going to probably fly 14 block hours a day. How many crew do we need? Now, if I've been employed to answer that question, how can I find out what to say? And that's the idea then. Okay, well, let's look at the manual. What do airlines do? Some do hours. I wrote a lot about hours and crew utilization. But other airlines use crew workdays. Okay, but if you haven't got a schedule, how can you calculate crew workdays? If someone knows, that's something that can go into the manual. If someone's doing workdays, that can go into the manual. If you have a disrupt, if you have a diversion, if you do crew training, how long does it take to employ? Where do you start this? How do you do that? We don't want to know the ins and outs. We just want to know a broad overview that will help somebody in the manual. So that's the reasoning behind, because to my knowledge, nothing exists whatsoever. So if you're new to a job, whether it be a high level or a low level, and someone says to you, how do I crew this? You're expected to know, or at least be trained. We all know how to do it. We all know what to do. What we don't know is why. Why do we put these crew on this aircraft? Why do we keep scheduling when we know we're going to have delays? And that's where the manual, I hope, will come in. And people like you can help develop that. Your expertise, your knowledge can help create something that may be beneficial for many people for years to come. So that's a small introduction, and I thank you for listening.
Thanks, Paul. You were mentioning Claire. Claire, when you were hearing about Project Genesis and the idea from Paul, and you were working in the past as a crew scheduler for a large US airline, what was your initial thought, and which are the challenges and the opportunities you are seeing by creating this menu?
So first of all, I completely agree with Paul that I'm not aware of anything like this that exists. And I know there's a study that will be presented at the upcoming Agafor's Crew Management Conference. There was a study done jointly from Agafor's and RMIT in Australia and the Lufthansa Flight Operations Academy on whether there could be opportunities for, standardized training for crew management. And I think there are definitely opportunities. There are concepts and ways of thinking that apply broadly. And I think the objections that I've heard and the challenges, and probably why this doesn't exist, is number one, I don't think enough people understand how critical it is to an airline functioning properly, all the way from manpower planning and the interactions with network planning, all the way through to the daily operation and how crew scheduling or crew control interacts with the operations in the recovery mode, and then how you feed that back into the plan. So there are many nuances between airlines, and we're already seeing this in the feedback that we've gotten from the manual so far, and in the survey we did last year for even just terminology. And I think all of us working together as a group to increase visibility and to share ideas is how we will gain, I think, knowledge about how this is done in the industry, and also understand how much we actually do have in common. So the work rules we use and the terminology we use and the systems we use may all be different, but the concepts are the same. The way of thinking that you need to do to efficiently plan crew and recover them, those will not vary from airline to airline. And so I think by us working together to identify the shared things and call out where there are major differences, like what Paul mentioned earlier and what I think we talked about last month when we first presented the manual, the difference in looking at block hours versus duty days for manpower planning, there are certainly nuances, but it still overall is the same concept. And so that is what excites me about working on this, is that we can help to elevate the profession and push the industry forward. Because as we've seen with all of the airlines coming out of COVID, the things that were all kind of like dangling from a string in the past just ended up, the string was cut with COVID in many different ways. And we've seen it in the news from many different airlines all over the world, how difficult it's been to ramp back up after that decrease in flying and personnel.
Kevin, you were reading the manual, and you were very keen to also jump into Project Genesis. So what was the reason that you were so quickly eager to become a member in this project, and what resonated with you while reading the manual?
Hey, so I agree with Paul and Claire about the opportunity to elevate crew rostering, crew scheduling across the industry. I think it's something that's sorely needed in this industry. I share a lot of the same sentiments that Claire shared a moment ago, where I don't think that the understanding in the industry of how complicated and how important the people are that do these jobs, and that it's necessarily taken as seriously as it should be. So I think this group is making some great strides in elevating the cause of schedulers and crew management across the industry, and just very excited to help with that process. It's something I'm very passionate about, and I think this group is doing absolutely incredibly good work, and I'd just love to help contribute the way that I can.
Leonie, you were also very quickly to jump on, first of all, airline crewing Enigma, and you come from another guest experience. So, of course, some airlines, they call passengers guests, and you come from the hotel business, and you're also very eager to really connect the hotel experience and the guest management and airlines. So what is your primary driver to also contribute with your know-how to the Enigma community?
Thanks, Daniel. So for me, in the past 20 years, I was actually a connector between airlines and hotels, facilitating the hotel contracting for airline crews. And in that position, I saw the difficulties we have, or in general, in regards to crew scheduling, crew operations, and how it actually affects our operation on hotel side as well. And I always tried to figure out how to find ways to work better and more efficient together. And I realized as well, when listening to Daniel and Claire and Paul on plenty of occasions, that the problem is actually much deeper than I would have thought. And also seeing the complexity of both of our industry working together and working even closer together in the future, how much it will have impact and how much we can standardize and work together. That was the main reason why I felt that joining the group would be a great benefit for my own understanding, but as well to educate maybe the hotel side, on the operation side, about the problematic, but also to support us on the crew side to standardize and move the project forward.
A question to all the attendees who are now here also with us, Ameline, Jennifer, Alive, Orkun, and Rowena. Probably all of you, maybe not all, have also read the manual. Would you like to give a rough estimate? How much different is your own airline crewing process at your airline compared what has been described in this manual? Is it 90% different, and we would need a sub-chapter in order to describe your process, or is it relatively close what Project Genesis is describing in the manual? I leave it to the group who is raising his or her voice first. Don't be shy.
I think for me, because we're a cargo airline and I've come from a passenger background, just the changes to cargo are a little bit different. The same things are still key. Their on-time performance is still a big deal. There's a few weird things that get thrown in, like you don't have the same catering, so water is a big deal. We have a lot more charters that come up out of nowhere that are going to places we've never been to, and you have a customer service team that's dealing with people worrying about cargo rather than actual passengers. Other than that, it's basically the same idea. It's the same setup. You're still trying to get crews to where they need to be when they need to be on time, and sometimes you're relying on other carriers that let you down. You still need to have your crew sched team still needs to have all their support and everything at their fingertips. You don't have the flight attendants, so the majority, like you can have more airplanes with less crew because we're only having pilots. You're only dealing with one set of rules because again, you're only dealing with pilots. So in those cases, it makes it a little bit easier. But you still have all of the pressures. They're still asking, the duty managers are still asking the same questions that they always asked of the crew schedulers, and you're still trying to get that information out of the system, and you still have that deer in the headlights look whenever somebody asks you that question because you don't know where to start, because everyone is a little bit different, but not different enough. So where you're starting might be a different place, but you're still getting to the same information. And for us, what I have is I have a Power BI tool, and that Power BI tool brings out, when you're in a IROP situation, you're not running a report on violations, you're not running what hotels need to be updated, you're not running what deadhead flights need to be booked. You just go to the BI tool and it tells you what you need to do. So that deer in the headlight looks, what have I done? What do I need to do? Have I got everything accomplished? Is right there for them. But it's basically the same, yes.
That's a good summary then. On the other hand, I think Leif, you are also coming from the cargo world, and I think Orkun, you too. So does it make sense to have a subgroup which is specifically looking into the cargo specifics, or would it be not necessary because we can just describe it as part of the general crewing Enigma manual? What do you think, Orkun and Leif?
Yes, basically they are the same with the cargo, and unfortunately I'm working with crew shortage unnecessarily, and I'm fighting with it, but it taught me how to handle the complicated situations, problems, and this kind of making the puzzle, putting right pieces into the right places. That's why this manual, when I checked the manual, I did some calculations that you written on this. For example, it was 17 that I should work with, 17 sets of crew, but I have 11. So, but it's really, these calculations, these formulas are very helpful. I hope it would be better and better day by day, this manual.
Thank you. And you are also invited to add your insights and perspective to it, because as Claire, Paul, Leonie, and Kevin said earlier, we are a community and we benefit from each other's wisdom. And of course, there are some local specifics, there are some business model specifics. And I think we are just at the beginning of this manual. And as more experts contribute, as more detailed we can describe it.
I'm really eager to do that.
Please give us also feedback, and we are happy to embed it into the manual.
Thank you.
One thing to note about the manpower planning section, which I appreciate you bringing this up. Some of the feedback we've gotten is around how even using different assumptions and different calculations with the same formulas, you may come up with two completely different answers, whether you may be overstaffed or understaffed with crew. And so I think it's, we want to make clear with the manual, which I think based on some of the feedback we've gotten prior to this presentation, we need to be clear that this is a sample formula and that you may have based off your rules. So cargo may have some different rules, or the type of carrier may have different rules, work rules from labor unions, work rules from localities may change somewhat the calculation. And also sort of the unplanned variables, which are the number of crews you need to cover absences and time off, et cetera. That I know many carriers saw those assumptions change coming out of COVID. So those are types of things that can greatly affect the number of crews needed. So this is meant to be somewhat of a blueprint or a starting point, and not a step-by-step how to do it, if that makes sense.
I totally agree. There are some different variables in different airlines, in different scenarios. I think we should go on with the different scenarios. We should increase the number of that. For example, captain is calling me right now. Sorry for that. But I totally agree with your opinion.
Thank you, Orkun. Rowena, Leif, and Ameline, any thoughts from your perspectives and after reading the menu?
From my side, I work for an airline in South Africa. If any of you are aware of what's happening, after COVID, there was quite a few airlines that closed down on our side, a national carrier, as well as 2 other big airlines. So currently we're growing so much. We have new departments, new sections in the crew scheduling department that I've never dealt with before. What I thought should happen, and after I read your manual, was quite interesting to see that I assume on the right path. If that's what other airlines are doing, it looks like we're going where we should. We're growing quite quickly, and I think whatever was stated in the Enigma manual currently and what we're doing is very much the same.
That's good to know. So I think that was exactly the big hope of the group, that we find a good compromise between the different business angles and business profiles and geographies. And of course, there's always exception from the rule. But if it's somehow confirming also for you that what you have as target for your airline, I think I take it as a compliment for Project Genesis and big compliment then to Paul. So your idea is potentially really working out. And hopefully we can also inspire more airline crew planners for their personal work. I just see that Alex joined. You were also giving some feedback after reading the manual. Thank you for that. You have some new thoughts after maybe reading it the second and the third time, because you were so flashed after reading it once. Alex, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Sorry, say that again.
So have you more thoughts? You gave already some feedback, which we are very delighted to embed in the manual. Do you have additional feedback after reading it? You were also talking about, I think, the manpower planning in particular, and we have considered this. Do you have any other thoughts? And what was also your first thought after reading the manual?
First of all, I must commend you and everyone for putting together such a comprehensive menu. I took the time to read it very well, and For me, I think it covers a broad aspect of crew planning, optimization, as well as crew rostery. I think in the course of the coming months, I would be able to still look at it critically and identify certain areas I think that certain improvement could be made. But for now, I think it's a beautiful job that has been put together. I must commend everyone for this. You guys are doing a great job.
Thank you. Much appreciated. And I think this is a motivation for Project Genesis to even try harder and to put even more sweat and heart into the upcoming weeks and months. Live, you are also new to the community and you were asking for the manual. Anything you would like to share to the community and to Project Genesis?
Hello. Well, I wished I had time actually to read it. I, as you know, requested it a bit late, but just got it, so I haven't had time to read it through yet. But looking at the overview and the whole idea of it is just fantastic. I really, really like it. And I think this is going to be something very useful for a lot of people. So I'm looking forward to this to proceed, and I'm going to have a look into this and read it thoroughly. Yeah, I'm very excited, actually. I think this is a very, very good idea. As been mentioned before, if we can get other people to understand what we're doing, would be great. Not only the crew, but I mean, if you are used to be maybe a likable person, being in crewing for a few months, you're not very popular. And it comes not only from the crews, can also come from the management, because they don't understand what we're actually doing. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to this.
Thank you, Lai.
Yeah.
Paul, you were hearing your idea is somehow really working out. And the good news is you have already another project in mind, and you gave it already also a name. And I think Kevin is also very keen to work on this project. Maybe you want to give already a short teaser on the next project we have in mind as part of this crewing Enigma project Genesis manual, but not just a chapter. We give it a good name.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. The concept of what we're doing now is primarily the planning side, and how good a plan we create falls into the hands of crew scheduling. So crew scheduling are expected to make our plan work. If they don't have enough crew, if they don't have enough crew in the right places, their jobs become much harder. They are experts in their field. They know more than we possibly know. So I thought, let's put crew scheduling slightly to the side, and I thought of a name, Project Ameliorate. Now, ameliorate has a meaning of to make something better, to improve it, or to bring to a standard. So it would be great to find resolution in crew disruption and have something that makes life so much easier. So that's the idea of ameliorate, where the crew scheduling experts can formulate a manual similar to the planning side. But unless we get the planning side right, the crew scheduling side will always be very challenging, and in some instances you want to pull your hair out. So that's the concept, and if Kevin's looking forward to that challenge, I would welcome that. A lot of the comments that have been made so far, I think it's fantastic that people are in agreement. And I know from my own experience within the airline industry, Management don't like us to share information with other airlines. We're not doing that. We're sharing a concept of a functionality amongst people who know what they're doing. So I'm not giving away any trade secrets. I'm just putting down an idea. This is how we do it. This is an idea of how to do it. So please do not fear retribution. Please, if you have anything you want to contribute, do so. It doesn't matter. A think tank is where thousands of ideas come in and the better ideas are filtered and utilized. It's the same concept. And you alone can help us make this dream a reality. So crew planning is one concept. Ameliorate is the other concept. So the crew schedulers, they're experts. This is the place where we will certainly need your support and your help. Thanks, Daniel.
And Kevin, I'm sure you have potentially already 50 pages ready, because when it comes about the recovery, there are a lot of things to add to such chapter, isn't it?
Yeah, Daniel, thank you. There is certainly lots to think about in the crew scheduling world. I've started to get some of my ideas down on paper a little bit, so I look forward to sharing some of that as I get ready to go with you guys and with the group. Paul asked a really good question last week when we were discussing the project Ameliorate. In what does Day of Ops have to critique about what crew rostering does? And I thought that was a really interesting place to start, especially based off of the manual you guys have produced so far. So started to make some notes about that. Definitely welcome input from anyone else with significant scheduling background. If you have thoughts as to how some of these concepts can tie into the body of what's already been produced by this group, would definitely welcome discussion and be glad to work with anybody that's interested in adding to that portion of this effort.
Yeah, and we have some time left where we want to discuss also the feedback we have received so far. Yeah, how do we want to do this? Shall I, because I put some of the items you put in the email, do we want to show this and ask the group about feedback? Do we want to share the document? What do you think is the best way to now discuss the feedback we have received?
I think, I mean, some of what we have in the document will depend on what we have subject matter expertise in for. Let's see. It looks like most of the feedback we have to discuss is around manpower planning, and we have a little bit around hotels and just overall processes and the glossary, but I know we only have about 10 minutes to go. Based off, we haven't built out that much on what Paul referred to as Project Ameliorate or the day of operations. So I don't know how much we have to discuss there, but based off the expertise we have, would it make the most sense to talk about some of the glossary terms or perhaps manpower planning?
I sensed also from the hottest trending topics that after recovery, manpower planning was the most hottest topic. So that's why maybe manpower planning would be a good topic to discuss.
Mm-hmm. So I guess some of the feedback was around just the different methodologies in manpower planning and how we can make clear in the manual that there are different ways to approach it and sort of different how different assumptions could affect the overall crew numbers. And I'm just curious from those who have read it and those who have contributed to it. So Paul, and I know some others who are part of Project Genesis who aren't on this call, but what could make that clearer and how might we best illustrate it?
Any feedback from the group about the manpower planning?
And maybe if not, I know not everyone had read it thoroughly, and perhaps if you can send us emails with that feedback, we could even share sort of the list of questions that we had regarding manpower planning. We certainly would welcome idea contributions. One of the challenges, and this is a good challenge, we have people all over the world from all different backgrounds contributing to this manual, but one of the challenges is just finding the best way to collaborate with the variety of responsibilities and time zones we have. So even ideas on how best to do that are welcome. What do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions about manpower planning, perhaps from airline executives or crews themselves? What are some of the biggest misconceptions that you think we can help clear up with the manual?
I would say the biggest misconception I see as an IT vendor representative is that many airlines use Excel for that. And Excel has limitations. It's also not integrated into the crew management systems. I think this would be something where manpower planning needs a big evolution to really use manpower planning tools, which are built for manpower planning. And Excel is not made for manpower planning. That's my comment from IT vendor perspective. I'm sure Rowena is agreeing on that.
Yeah, so hi everyone. I'm Rowena, I'm from New Zealand and also from a vendor. So yeah, any comment like that's going to help. To be honest, manpower planning is not specifically the area that I work in. So yeah, but I'm always going to agree with this comment. So yeah.
Is there anybody here in this call who is not using Excel for manpower planning? Good, 100% Excel, good.
Another thing I'm curious about, and Leonie, maybe you can, if we don't have, I know we have a variety of experiences here, but since we have you here to speak about the hotels, one of the comments we got in feedback was about the challenges of airlines securing hotels on contract because airlines typically don't pay as high a rate as, you know, leisure customers or business customers. And so that affects the revenue. I think maybe sometimes hotels don't realize the consistency in revenue they can get from airlines. So there's a trade-off on rate versus consistency. But what are some of the challenges you see with hotels realizing the opportunities that airlines might present?
I can get very emotional talking about this topic, so you have to stop me there. But in general, the comment I read was already that hotel perceive airline business as cheap business. And already this, I would like to make a comment there. It's airline business to hotels. It's not cheap business. It always depends on the market. It could be a seller or buyer market. And as we see right now, for example, in Vancouver or Toronto or New York or Miami, rates are tremendously high. So, and the airlines still need to sleep somewhere. They need to get into the market. They still need to overnight. So the crew is still there. So there's always an opportunity, a great opportunity for hotels to receive airline business. And no, it's not always cheap business. There's a misconception. Yes, if it's a buyer's market, then which would be from the hotel perspective, a market where the hotel is in need of airline business or in need of base business, so to call, that would be the general crew layover. That is 365 days out of a year. That is base business that the hotel really has to calculate based on their displacement, and there from there they can always yield more on other on other business. But to have the base business in-house is always a huge plus. And we have a lot of cargo airlines now on the call as well. And cargo business is never a cheap business. It's beautiful business for the hotels. It's 2 to 3 rooms daily. It's a talk business that the hotels are actually needing. So there's a huge variety of business airlines are bringing into the hotels, and hotels in general always shy back when hearing airline business because it's complicated. It consists usually of a huge contract structure and 250 questions that are out there, and this is where hotels are shying back, and where we are trying on our side as well to standardize and make it easier for the business in general. But no, it's in general, it's great business for the hotels to have, either in a seller or buyer's market, if it's for charter business, if it's for cargo business, or it's for a regular layover. And therefore, I cannot agree with the comment that was made that hotels perceives it as cheap business, because no, it's not always cheap business. It depends on the market.
So we have 4 minutes.
Yeah,
to
and
go.
I'm
Yeah, so go on.
Oh, I was just going to say perhaps we can use our manual to help dispel that rumor and to have something to point to. So I think that is another kind of use case for the manual, because it's also important for hotels that flights can be coming into their market, and if you're going to have flights coming into your market, you need to have crews coming into your market and a place for them to stay. So that's a really good point.
So we have 3 minutes to go, and I wanted to also take the opportunity to just show that our community is growing almost every week. 168 airlines are now with representatives part of this community. And I'm currently coordinating with one colleague from Europe to give an expert talk in late May, maybe early June, about their way of operating. And this is also an invitation to everybody who is here in this call. If you want to give your local insights and tell a little bit the community your best practice, I think this is also helping everybody as part of the Enigma community to better understand where she or he is standing with this local business. So we encourage you to present a little bit from your personal airline. And as topics, it's of course everything which is potentially touching our daily limitations we all have. How can we simplify processes? How, this is part, of course, of Project Ameliorate, can we mitigate the disruptions? How can we make use of technology for crew planning and crew scheduling? How we can automate, how we can maybe use emergent technologies. I think there's a big buzz around ChatGPT. How can this technology help our field and crew planning and crew scheduling, and how we can also have all these decision support tools in place. So that's what we would like to have in the upcoming months as topics from the community to the community. And if you want to talk from your airline, please get in touch with Claire or me, and we would be very grateful to discuss what are the expectations. And on the other hand, I think you have some earlier talks we had already from Paul, from Marcel, and from Dennis. They're available on YouTube, and you can see it's easygoing. There's no mean person, no mean questions. It's everything very collaborative, and we help each other. So we are not biting, and we are only giving compliments. So please kindly do the needful and get in touch with us if you want to give a local talk. So we have just 1 minute to go. Paul, when you were joining today, you had potentially high hopes. how are you feeling today, and what's your outlook for the future with Project Genesis and Project Amirate?
I think the contribution of people has been fantastic. It's great to see that everybody agrees that we need this, and I know that the way the airlines work, it's the people that make it work, and this manual for me will be written and available for people when they need it. So thank you very, very much, everybody.
Yeah, and last but not least, there are, I think, 2 great opportunities very soon to meet in person. I believe, Jennifer, you are going to attend the NACU in Louisville, if I'm correct. And some of you are also going to attend the Agiforce Crew in Santiago de Chile. Both events are in May, and it would be great to then discuss in person the progress of our both projects and have an fruitful discussion, not just virtual, but in person. So it would be great to catch up with almost everybody from you, either in Louisville or in Santiago de Chile. Thank you very much, everybody, for attending. I think it was a fantastic discussion. And again, we're just at the beginning of a journey which will be widened every day with the wisdom of everybody here on the call and the community in total. We are approaching 500 community members, and we just started in August last year. So I think maybe we will achieve these 600 in 1 year. That's somehow my personal target, Claire. So I don't know whether I'm too optimistic for that.
Thank you very much for everything, Daniel.
Thank you very much.
Thank
and
you.
Please, everybody, stay
Thank
smart,
you.
positive, upbeat,
Thank
and
you.
enthusiastic. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.